We're talking about marriage expectations, marital expectations. Before we get started, I need to open this up to kind of do something fun. I think it'd be fun. Why don't we have, if there are any couples here who would say, I would like to talk about what my expectations were when I got married. Hold on, y'all been married for a month. A month? No. I'm sorry. They know who I'm talking
No,
to.
yeah.
He just looked
Yeah.
back. Yeah.
Like, yeah, we talking to you.
What you looking back for? I'm talking to you. Y'all been married for a month, right? So, but I said a month. Why'd you turn around? Okay. So can I put you guys on the spot? Okay, cool. You're gonna take my mic. I want you to talk about, both of you, what were some of your expectations when you got married?
Well, it's actually funny that you say that because part of our assignment in pre-engagement counseling it was like 200 questions, and it said, what are my expectations? So we talked about, for finances, we actually said that, CJ, we expected you to be the lead for that. And then they asked, who has the better credit score? And they said, okay, Crystal, you're going to take the lead on that. And then we said, how much sex do you guys want to have in marriage? Because we had been celibate prior to that. And he said, every day. And I was like, ooh, okay, all right. Expectations versus reality.
So, so a lot of the expectation stuff, we kind of threw a lot of stuff out through the pre-engagement of what we thought marriage would look like. A lot of it has been, I would say, different, but some of it is what we're expecting, like living together for the first time, learning how to learn more about each other and to work together. That was a little bit was different. So we didn't have like high goals where they got shattered. I think we kept them in reasonable expectation. He's like, I need more than that.
I mean, I would, yeah, man, but if that's all you want to say.
No, that's great. No, we appreciate you sharing. I think sometimes, go ahead, babe. You can.
No, go.
I think sometimes you can have an idea of marriage that it's like going to be this big fantasy land. And that was my idea of marriage. I just thought that when we got married, that just meant we are going to cuddle every single day and just be together all the time and just be so happy and skip off in the wind together and just hold hands and just be so lovey-dovey, just like the movies, right? And I just had this idea of what I thought marriage was going to be. And then when I got married, I was like, oh, this is actually hard. Like, this actually requires effort and work and a death to myself. And I think sometimes when you're single, you have an idea of all these things that you want, and these are all my expectations because of what you heard somebody else say. But when you get married, you have to figure out what are the expectations within your own marriage.
Yeah. The reason why expectations are so important and so vital is because of this big reason right here. Every expectation that you have that is not met will lead into frustration. Frustration happens because of unmet expectations. So usually when I sit down with a couple in premarital, we will sit down and I will say, our first session, we will go over expectations. What are your expectations? They will sit down and they will say, I expect this, in the same way y'all did. 200 questions almost. It's like, okay, what are your expectations when it comes to sex? I want to have sex every single day. And then usually when we hear those type of things, we laugh like, you actually think it's going to work?
Like, wait till you have kids. Good luck with that.
Not going to happen.
Yeah.
So we talk about,
but
sex.
But it's still a good idea, though.
We talk about finances.
Still a good idea.
It's a great idea, baby.
Amen.
We talk about finances. What are your expectations with finances? We talk about what are your expectations with in-laws. Any in-law drama? I saw when they said that, everybody was like, oh, because you have to have in-law drama. What's your expectations when it comes to friends? What is your expectation when it comes to children? Do you want to have children right away? Do you want to have children? You want to wait to have children? So now you all are married. You guys have crossed that threshold of marital bliss. You guys have stood at the altar. You went through all the lovey-dovey stuff. You got home, honeymoon, had your first argument. Boom! The expectation is still out there. And what happens is over time, you keep those expectations going. And you may not realize that I still have an expectation, and I'm frustrated because you haven't met that expectation. For instance, I had an expectation that when we got married, because before we got married, you filled my head with dreams. You said this is what we were going to do. You said this is who we were going to be. You said this is where we're going to live. And now we're married. And I ain't seen none of that. And I'm trying to figure out, why has that not come? Why have I not seen that woman that you said that you were going to be? Why have I not seen that man that you say you're going to be? I still have an expectation, and I'm frustrated. And what happens is, over the years, you silently grow bitter towards your spouse because you're frustrated. I'm frustrated because you said that you're going to have a job, and you still don't have one, and I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated because you said we can pay off this debt, and we still haven't paid it off. I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated because you said that we're going to finally be able to go on a vacation one time, and we have not done that yet, and I'm frustrated. So there are a lot of expectations, and any expectation that does not get met is going to result in frustration. It happens. Trust me, if you have not dealt with it yet, it's a conversation you have to sit down and ask each other, what are my expectations? Now, they're different. Areas of expectations. We kind of went over some. The sexual expectation, what does sex look like? How will we be having that? And then it's even good to sometimes sit down and have that conversation again, because how many of you know, over the years, it's kind of like things change. And now sometimes the expectations are a little bit differently. Because when you have kids, and all the people who have kids in the room, you understand that, sex is still important, but it's kind of a little bit tougher to get, especially when you have smaller kids. I don't know. Some people who have really good kids, they go to sleep at 8 o'clock at night. Well, I don't know. We didn't have that. God didn't give us that gift. He didn't give us that in the treasures He gave to us. My kids stay up. He stays up to like midnight, and I don't understand why. He just turns around and just runs in a circle. But you have to get creative. But you still want to meet the expectation that you have of your marriage.
I want to talk about expectations with raising children. I know people in here have children, or there's people that maybe want to have children in the future. I think it's important that you voice your expectations that you want to have in regards to raising your children. Now, things might change when you're in the heat of the moment and you're raising your child, but I grew up in a home where discipline was not we discipline differently, I would say, than my husband's family. Doesn't mean one's better, one's worse, but there wasn't a lot of spanking growing up where I'm from. And then I met my husband and his side of the family. It was like, grab whatever you can grab and throw it at the kid. You know what I mean? So it was very different. I mean, my parents are white, and so they believed in and I know white people that beat their kids too, but my parents are very nice and sweet.
Time
and
outs.
Fine.
Time
outs. And let's talk about what's going on in your heart. And that was
Write it down on the wall.
Well, we didn't write it on the wall, but
on the piece of paper thing.
Oh yeah.
I will love my sister.
Well, that's what I used to have to do. I have to write 100 times, I will love my sister and my family, when I got in trouble. I mean, I really got in trouble. And I have to share a story that could, not going to get me in trouble, but. So remember when I shoplifted at that. So, okay.
This is when she was younger now. She was younger.
I didn't know Jesus. Okay.
Please give your age. Give your age.
Okay, I'm 34.
No, not your age now. I'm talking about.
All right, I was like 13.
13.
12. I was a baby.
We're just trying to figure out, this is like a while ago.
Okay,
I don't want a story to come out that you're a shoplifter.
But this is just an example to bring in the story, I promise. I do not steal. It's not a problem. Praise the Lord. But I'll tell you why I did it. I grew up in an all-white home, and I would see black movies on TV. And I, in my head, thought that all black people shoplifted. Sorry, guys. I'm really sorry. But I didn't know. I really didn't know.
This is a racial problem we're talking about in America right now.
Yeah, no, but it was because I would watch movies, and at the time, it portrayed that. And so, mind you, I'm mixed, and it was my first time hanging out with some black girls that I met. So I'm like, oh, I thought we about to go steal. We go to the mall. It's so bad. And I hate that I'm recording this, but hey, we all got to get saved from something. Amen. Anyways, so I go to the mall and I go to Sears, okay? Really bad.
All stores. She goes to Sears.
I go to Sears and I'm with these girls.
Still a washing machine?
And I'm real turnt. I'm real turnt, I'm about to steal. And they're looking at me like, we don't steal. Who are you? And I'm just trying to be cool, trying to fit in. Mind you, I'm 13, don't know my identity, trying to figure out who I am. And I never hung out with African Americans. I was just excited to have somebody that I felt oh my gosh, you're kind of like my color too. And so I ended up stealing and getting caught. Okay, so they pull me to the back, and they have all this stuff, and the girls left. They're like, "She crazy. We ain't hanging out with her. She talk about black people steal. No,
Real
we
black
don't.
People. That's real black people.
Right, we don't steal. You're crazy." So then my mom is so sweet. She drives 30 minutes to me, and so we get in there, and as soon as my mom sees me, she grabs me and hugs me and grabs my face and is like, "Sweetheart, you don't ever have to steal anything, ever. You hear me? Nothing." She said, "Do you remember everything that you stole?" And I said, "Yes." She's like, "Okay, I'll take you to the store tomorrow to buy everything that you stole. You don't have to steal anything." I know. I know. I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, no whooping, no nothing. No whooping, no how dare you. No.
I wouldn't even be here right now.
But it's an example to show you how different I was raised. So now when we have children and our children cut up or they act up, I'm very different. I like to communicate. I like to talk to them. I like to talk through their problems. And, I don't even like to sit them in timeout because I don't like insulation. You know what I mean? And so I like to communicate differently than my husband. And meanwhile, the way you discipline, you want to share?
Well, I mean, we have a little bit different of a style because where I grew up, all black family, it was just different. So, when you said something smart, you got popped in the mouth. It wasn't even like, it was just, my mom would be having a conversation at the bank, blah, 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 blah. And I'm sitting up there, and the whole thing was you don't talk when grown people are talking. That's just common sense in my house. But nonetheless, we're at the bank, and I'm just sitting there. I'm like, Mama, because I want a lollipop. Mama. And she's just having a conversation, doesn't turn away from the conversation, does not stop her work. She goes, smack. And after I finally came to, because I realized I probably had a mild concussion, that, I wasn't getting the lollipop. I needed to just wait. But that was how I was raised. So when we initially had kids, when we had Logan, I think Logan was like 9 months old?
Yeah.
He was like 9 months old. I'm like, look, you need to grow up, okay? This is ridiculous. You need to grow up. Like, I'm tired of all this crying.
He's like,
I've dealt with this for 9 months, and you're not walking yet, and I'm really getting annoyed by this because other people's kids are at least crawling now, and you just sitting here. And I was really getting annoyed with it, and I mean, Logan, he progressed, but I believed in getting the rod, and I get the rod, but my rod is a spoon because although I do believe in the discipline of spanking, I don't believe that you use the same hand that you love with to hit with. I believe that. So I believe you get a spoon. I have my spoon, and my kids know the spoon. You get the spoon, you get 3 taps, pop, pop, pop. Even that's different from how I was raised because my mom used to just give me with anything, ironing board. Whatever she could find, a house shoe, whatever she could find. But our parenting styles were different.
and caused a lot of conflict.
It caused a great deal of conflict where she would get upset because she's like, I feel like you hit him too hard. And my thing was, in my head was, I didn't hit him hard enough. But I'm just trying not to put a mark on him because I don't want the state to come pick up my kids. You know what I'm saying? But it left this rift in our marriage. That we ultimately had to come back and we had to work through because I had an expectation that when we had kids, this is how it was going to be. And then when it didn't happen that way, I started to get frustrated at her, and I feel like she was fighting against me, and then she felt like I was fighting against her because she's like, well, I want to talk to the kids, and I'm like, well, I don't want to talk to the kids. They don't understand anything. I've already talked to them one time. They don't need to. They don't need to understand this. Now they need punishment. And so that was something that we both had to deal with. But we say all this to say that the expectations in themselves are extremely important. And we tell you these stories to let you know not only the reality of the situation, but also to let you know that if you have not sat down to discuss, okay, what are we currently right now expecting in our marriage? And then what can we seek to expect? Another big thing about expectations in marriage is this. What is the vision that you guys have established for the marriage so that you guys can know, okay, this is where I'm going and this is what I can expect for the future? Here's the big question I normally ask married couples when I sit down with them, and most married couples cannot give me a solid answer on this. The question is this: where are y'all going? Yeah. What is the expectation that you have to live forward to? Okay, so you've been together for 10 years. Okay, what can I expect for the next 10 years? Or is this we're just kind of taking this day by day type thing? What can I expect? Can I expect that, you know what? The dream that you sold me when we got married, that we're gonna run towards that? Or should I just expect that we're just gonna just kind of keep working and just kind of, going through the motions? Or what can I really expect out of my marriage? I want to see something that I was sold, and I don't see what I was sold. You understand what I'm saying? So what does that expectation look like? Where am I going? Where are we going? What are we doing? Because right now it's just like we're just kind of here, coasting through life, in our marriage, and nothing is changing. So those are important questions that you have to sit down and you have to ask one another. What is the expectation that I have in my marriage, and what can we expect in the future? What can I possibly sit down with my spouse and look at it and say, okay, this is what you can expect. One of the things that my wife and I, we like to do is we like to sit down and we like to have what we call business meetings, because we like to run our marriage like you would run a corporation. I mean, we feel like a marriage is a ministry. If you're going to run a ministry, you have to run it well. Ministry, you have administrative needs. In administrative needs, you have bills got to be paid. You have, things have to be done. You have appointments have to be booked. Stuff has to be done in your marriage. So you have administrative things. You also have financial things. So, you have to figure out, okay, who's going to be the CFO in the ministry? My wife is the CFO in our household. When money comes in, she sees it. She spends it. She does everything else with it.
Really, babe? Really?
Praise the Lord. But nonetheless, you have the finances in the ministry as well. But then you also should sit down and discuss what the vision looks like of the ministry. Okay, this is where we are, but in 6 months, what can I expect? Can I expect something different here, or should I be expecting the same thing, or are you looking at doing something differently? And then here's the other thing. Whatever we're willing to deliver to our spouse in expectation, we have to make sure that we can be able to back it up in action. Because if your spouse continues to hear these expectations that you just kind of get out of the sky, and mostly I'm talking to visionaries here, and this is the visionary. The visionary is the person who has a vision for everything. New vision every other week. Y'all know it, just a new vision. There's people like that, and they're awesome people. But every time you see him, it's something differently. I have one friend. He is a great visionary. He is an awesome visionary. But every single month, he has a different venture. And I look at him and I say, okay, what is the one that's going to stick? Because right now, you got a lot of things. Like, you're going to play basketball, you're going to do this, and you're going to do that. But, like, what is it that you really are called to do? What does that look like? And you're feeding these dreams and all these expectations, and you're trying to figure out why your spouse is so bitter towards you, and the bitterness is coming in because she's frustrated. He's frustrated because these are the expectations I'm hearing, but I'm not seeing anything. And I want to see action. I want to make sure that the last expectation that I had, that was met. And it could be something as small as, and if you have a problem with keeping expectations, set some small ones. Be able to sit down with your spouse and say, you know what, you can expect that next week that we're going to have dinner together at least four times next week together. Because I know that's important to you. And make sure for that next week, at least 4 times that week, we sit down and we have dinner together. That proves something. It's small, but it proves something. It proves, you know what, you care enough about me to at least set this expectation and to meet it. And then you can go bigger. Okay, I have an expectation that by next year, we can finally take that dream trip you've been wanting to take to Greece. And then it's like, okay, I hear the expectation, but now I see you putting some action to it. That means it's going to cost us about this much to get there, so let me start putting away this money right here. I'm going to start putting that away in this account. We're not going to spend this money. We're not going to do that. We're going to look at buy our tickets. Oh, we just bought our tickets. Okay, we're looking at the hotel. Boop, I already booked the hotel room. We already know what we're doing. We're talking about it. And then by the time comes next year, I know the expectation has been met. What you're doing in your marriage is you're teaching how to trust one another. And you're also keeping it fun. If something doesn't have vision, I guarantee you it's dying. And most marriages I sit down with are dying, if not dead, because they lack vision. They don't know where they're going. They're just kind of living. And it's like, oh, we're here, we got kids, and those are our kids, and I have a job, and she has a job, and we both have family, and my family don't care too much for her, and her family don't care too much for him. So I mean, it's just that's just it. That's us. But that's all. That's it to your marriage. But what does that expectation look like? What can we expect out of you, and what can you expect out of your spouse?
That's good. I think what's key is when you're sharing your expectations with your spouse. And if we can be honest, I feel like, I know the ladies anyway, I'm just going to say, the ladies are very vocal about what they want and their expectations. We probably have gotten in fights about what we want and what we're not seeing done that we feel like is fast enough. And I've learned that with my expectations, there needs to be some grace. I have found that, like when my husband said that we're starting a church and we moved to a whole nother state, and in my head I'm thinking we're going to start the church there, this is going to happen, that is going to happen, but that wasn't God's timing. The timing didn't happen until we moved back to Atlanta. So what I learned that when my husband says this is what we're going to do and he leads me, it might not happen overnight. So my job is to help me is to pray for my husband and stand with him. My husband's not the type of person that has a new idea every other day either. He's also very sure in the direction of where we're going, and he doesn't stop until he gets to that place. So I challenge you, ladies, if your husband has shared something with you and you have an expectation, well, I thought we're going to see it right away, like grace your spouse. You have to give him time to develop and give each other time to develop into who God called your marriage to be. We are not the same couple that we were when we first got married. And I'm sure you guys can attest, even the couple that's been, married for a month. You change, you're growing, you're evolving. You have to give your marriage a chance to grow and mature. Now, another area that you touched on a little bit was in-laws and friends. So what are your expectations with that? I'm very careful to only share certain things with certain people concerning my marriage. I'm telling you, some of y'all are sharing some things with family members that will hold it against your husband or your wife long after you've forgiven them. So you have shared some stuff with mama, and mama's real emotional, real dramatic. She's just done. But now Thanksgiving's come around. You forgave your spouse. You don't care. You've moved on. But they are holding it against them. How dare they do that to you? How dare? No, the expectation is I need to protect my marriage. I don't share fights that I have with my husband really with anybody. I just don't. I take it to the Lord. I do. And I always tell Jesus, this is my vent session. I'm about to tell on your son. So that I have that conversation with the Lord, unless I do have some wise counsel that I'll go and pull from. But even then, I share very little information because I want to always protect my spouse and always make him look great. I do, because that's my spouse. We're one flesh. If I'm tearing him down, I'm tearing down myself. I'm tearing down my marriage. So you have to be careful. Who are you opening up to? Who are you sharing information about your precious covenant with? Because I'm telling you, those people can hold it against you later on. And another area I thought we could tackle is, what are your expectations of the home? We talked about it a little bit this morning, but I think it's key. If you find yourself frustrated constantly, like, I'm just waiting for her to make the bed and do all the dishes and clean the whole entire house, but then she has a whole 9 to 5, then you have like 6 kids, and then all this stuff is going on. Realistically, that might be really hard for her to do. So I have learned that I can't do everything, and I'm not even going to try because I'm one person. So what I learned is like the Proverbs 31 woman, she had some servant girls. She went and got some help. So when we didn't have a whole lot, when Logan came, we didn't really have a whole lot, but we started selling stuff out of our closet to pay for a nanny to come and help us clean up. And then we would, sell stuff online, and we do different things so we could pay for a cleaning lady to come in and deep clean every other week. It could be those small things where you say, all right, I don't have time to deep clean this whole house. And some people are really good at it. And I love you. Can you come to my house and clean my house? I think you're amazing. But that's not my gift and talent. It's just not. My mom, did you just? But it was the way you laughed though. I'm glad you know, because they do not to laugh. Praise. I have other gifts and talents, and that's just not it. But my mother's so sweet. She just didn't have me do a whole lot. It kind of spoiled me growing up. I have to wash clothes until I got to college, and then I was so confused. It was after college. I had to call my mom, like, how do I use this machine? Yeah, praise the Lord. So I wasn't very domestic. But if I know that that's my weakness, then I go find a way to replace my weakness. And that's what we should do, ladies. We should be resourceful, and gentlemen as well. So if my husband sees that I'm super stressed out and I'm having a long day, but I have all this food that's uncooked, I still need to make dinner tonight, and it just hasn't happened, my husband will come in without even saying anything, and he'll be like, you know what, babe, I got this, and he'll just make dinner. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that it's not like, oh, my expectation is you cook every single night. Granted, I do cook most nights, but there's times where, I'm overwhelmed or I'm busy or I'm swamped or my hands are in multiple pots. So I think it's important that you have that conversation so you are not frustrated.
And the last piece of this that we want to mention before we get into questions is this. Are your expectations realistic? And are they biblical? Like, that can be the hard part. Like, are my expectations, are they really realistic? Like, can I really put this on you? And you have to, and when I say realistic, when I say biblical, this is like one of the biggest examples I want to use. You cannot expect for this rough, tough man that you know where you met him to all of a sudden be this Care Bear who is just going to just cater to you every 15 minutes
And buy
of
you
your
flowers
life.
every 5 minutes.
You can't expect that. You know where you met him. Can we be honest? You know where you met him. You know where you met her. And you cannot expect for her to all of a sudden just come into the house and just be this woman who just cares for wanting to take care of the home and wants to care for her husband and wants to care for her. You can't expect that right out the gate. So you have to be able to grace her and be able to say, okay, is this realistic? Now I will tell you this: if you have an expectation that you want to meet, the best thing to do is to get around other people who are exceeding those expectations and learn from them. There's nothing wrong with couples getting together with other couples to learn from each other. That's one thing that we lack with marital couples. We lack that community, that village of getting together. If you don't have other married couples around you can sit down with and really talk to. Not marital couples you can sit down and like do surface stuff with, because that's one thing we hate doing. We hate surface conversation. I am not a small talk type of guy. I can care less how your week was last week. That doesn't mean I don't like you. I'm just not a small talk type of guy. I'm more of an in-depth. If this conversation is meaningful, let's talk about it. But if you're going to ask me how I'm doing, I want you to be prepared for an answer, because I'm not the type of guy that's going to tell you, oh, I'm blessed, because that's not always the truth. The truth is that, you know what, I'm stressed out. You know I'm stressed out because I got 2 kids at home, and I don't want any more kids, and I'm gonna let you know. And sometimes we've gone out to dinner with couples, and they'll look at us, and they'll say, so how are you guys doing? I'm like, well, we're fighting in the car. And they'll look at us, they're like, oh, okay, yeah. And I'm like, well, yeah, you asked us how we were doing, and Heather's like, yeah, we were, but it's okay. We could talk about it later on. So how are you guys doing? They're looking, they're like, oh, we're really good. We're really, really great. And we're like, y'all lying. Y'all are so lying. But you have to have those marital couples around you who are really, really serious about hearing you out, and you can learn from, and you can grow with, and you can be graced with. Like, one of the things that we really love having at our church is we have a marriage ministry. They get together. They have game nights. I mean, they have. They have roasting sessions. They have potlucks. I mean, it's amazing what they have an opportunity to do. But they have a community where they can come together. The guys can come together and talk about, okay, this is not a wife bashing meeting, but this is something kind of like that. And then no, I'm not saying it's not like that. It's just something that kind of mirrors it a little bit. Then you have the same thing where the wives can come together. You can have meaningful conversation about, this is what happens in my household, because you have to have somewhere to let that out. You have to have somewhere
like
that you can talk,
place.
a safe place. And like my wife was saying, when you're talking to your family and your friends, understand something about your friends. You want to make sure that you are not confiding in people who are at the stage of life where you are. Those are the people that you can kind of talk to about, not necessarily meaningful things. Don't talk about people at the stage you're at. You want to talk to people when you're confiding in them. You talk to people who are at stages that you want to be at, the places that you want to go. You don't really confide in the people who are really at your level. Because what happens is, this crazy thing called life, people change. And sometimes some couples mature a lot faster than others. And the problem is, a lot of couples, you'll try to keep friends who God is saying, it's not a bad thing that you've kind of outgrown this. It's okay. It's okay. I'm going to need for you to exit out this way. And I'm going to need for you to now find some other couples that you can kind of yoke together with, you can talk to. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can't talk to them. You can still go out to dinner, you can still go out to lunch, but just be careful about confiding in them because they're at the same level that you're at. Now, those are like your friends. You really want to confide in those people who are like your mentors, the couples you look up, that couple you look up to. And if you don't have that, you need to have that. You need to have that couple or couples that when things happen in the marriage, you can call them up. You can say to them, hey, this is going on. We need help because there must be a standard breaker. It has to be somebody to break a rule. I know every couple in here, if you've been married more than a month, boom. If you've been married more than a month, you've run into that one argument where neither one of you could come to a conclusion, and you're like, hold up. No, this is like we don't really have an answer, and it's not a good thing to always push things under the rug. So what we have to do is you have to get on the phone with that marital couple and say, okay, this is the problem, and you both have to be submitted enough to hear the solution. But it's important for you to have that, but just make sure that even in the friends that you have, don't put too many expectations in that friend or in those friends to be able to provide you the things that you know you need to be getting at home. Okay? So when it comes to friends, if you have not set those expectations yet, set them. If there are some friends that we all have those friends that our spouse is like, I don't really like you being around that person. We all have that. So if you also have those, if you have not sat down and went over the friendship expectation boundaries and all that sort of stuff, you need to talk about those things this weekend. You need to talk about the in-laws. And you need to have that discussion and say, you know what? You know your mama hates me. So what is your expectation this year for real when it comes to the holidays? Because we got to go. And I just want to make sure that I understand the expectation, that I'm not just going here to hear something about how much she doesn't like me again for the 5th year in a row. What is the expectation that we have? And really, really hammer those things out and really talk about those things.
I think I just challenge you guys maybe to write this down to say, what are my expectations concerning sex, concerning finances, and for one person it might be, I want to be debt-free. And this was my idea, and this is my plan. And then the other person might be like, well, I want to be debt-free, but I don't really care. I mean, it's not a big deal to me. So you might be finding out that you guys have some silent frustrations that you don't know about. So it's key to open up and have those conversations and communicate. Because y'all remember, date night tonight, there's no phones, right? What are the rules? Yes. If you weren't here last night, we have 3 rules. The first one is no complaining, no fighting, and no phones at dinner. And it just encourages you to not be distracted and to just focus on your spouse. So everything that you're learning today, you need to have that time where you sit. And the thing is, when your spouse says an expectation, don't get mad. Don't get mad at them. I mean, that's your spouse. That's the person you married. Like, sometimes we listen to what our spouse says and we're like, well, and get frustrated or, we tried that and it's not working. No. Let's listen to each other. If I'm the person closest to you and I want to make this marriage work and I want us to be strong and healthy together, like these are my expectations. This is what is important to me. And I feel like if it's important to your spouse, it should be important to you. So I think we're going to take some questions, but we got a question. You want to read it, baby?
I think I read it. So I'll tell you what. Let's ask questions, and I think we might get into the answer.
Okay.
First question.
So the question I have, and we've been trying to figure this out. We've been married for about 1.5 years now. Is just addressing like the expectations of roles. Like I was kind of like you, Heather. Like I had this vision of like family, and I watched too many Disney movies growing up. My parents are still married. So I married into a blended family, and so it's trying to understand like the roles and like the expectations of order because of the personality I am. Like I can like. What I've told my husband like halfway through is like I feel like I'm stepping down and I don't know how to step up. Like there's his mom. He has an older sister, so his sister's like much older, and then we have his daughter, and then we have his daughter's mother. So there's a lot of women that are much older than me, and there's a lot of women in higher roles. So I don't know how to deal with like the expectations of like what my role is and how we address that. But still, like I know that everybody has a purpose in his life, because they made him who he is.
So maybe I'm confused by the question, but you're just saying there's a lot of women that are
like
strong.
understanding the expectations of roles in marriage.
I see what you're saying. So I think it's so important that you find your lane, your own lane, in your own marriage. Yes, there might be a lot of examples that are great examples. You can pull from them. But, I mean, his mom is this great soul food chef. I mean, she can throw down on some soul food. But I'm not going to allow the pressures of what other people have going on to pressure me to feel like, oh, I'm not enough because I make vegan food without butter and without anything. You know what I mean? So I just look at it like, I'm going to stay in my lane. I'm going to do what God wants me to do, and I'm going to communicate with my spouse and say, like, okay, well, you like the house like this, or let's figure out a way to do that. So don't let the pressures from everybody else come into you. Exactly.
So you said there are a lot of external pressures?
Yeah, so everybody has yes. There's a lot of yes.
Oh, well.
And so I just felt like I literally, like, halfway, I just, like, stepped down. Like, it was, like, the day after our marriage, and, like, everybody was coming to, like, my husband, like, because we all stayed in the same hotel. So, like, mom was coming. Sister had something. His daughter was staying with us. So it was just, like, I was like, I'm just going to be in the room. I don't know. Like, it was a lot. Like, it became very overwhelming with that. And, like,
Okay, here's the thing. In Genesis, when God presented Eve to Adam, in that beautiful presentation, when those two were joined together, God looked and God said, this is, Adam looked, he said, this is bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh, blah, blah, blah. But he said that man now, you shall be joined to your wife, and you shall be together as one. You shall leave your father and your mother. So now I say that to say this. In the series in the hierarchy of marital living, when I got married, my wife became my priority. She came first. Now, before I got married, I love my mama. I'll tell anybody, I am my mama's boy. I love my mama. But I had to make it clear that my wife came before my mama. I had to make it clear that my wife came before my older sister. I have an older sister. She comes before my older sister. I had to make it clear that my wife comes before any other woman in my life. In fact, even when I marry people now, one of the parts that I always say that usually, depends on the crowd. I usually get some boos, I get some yays. But one part I always say is when I'm talking to the groom, I look at him and I say, if you say yes to this woman, you're saying no to every other woman in the world, including your mother. And usually the mom is sitting right there, and that's when you get the boo. But I say that to say that she is no longer your priority. And I know in many different situations, we sit down with them, many different situations, especially blended families, blended couples, and we have some blended couples here who I think it'd be really good for you guys to kind of blend and be able to talk to. But even in the situations we've seen where blended, the standard is still the same. Like, I'll look out on social media and it'll have those things that says, who comes first? The baby mama, your wife, your mama, and this is like, yeah, it's not a question. My wife comes first. My wife comes first. Like, even when I look at my kids, I would love to be able to say, well, my kids come first, but they don't. Unfortunately, it took us to make them. So if they leave, it's still going to be us. And I have to make sure that this is the best it can be. But also, I know it's my responsibility to validate her in front of everybody else. So when my mom says something that is contrary to what my wife says, then I have to correct my mom. I love my mama, but I have to correct my mom in front of my wife and say, Mom, you can't do that. That's my wife. Yep. What happened? Logan and the meat. Oh, yeah. So my mom, back a couple of years ago, my mom was like, I'm going to feed, because we told my mom before Logan was born, hey, we want Logan to be vegetarian. Now, back then, I ate everything that they put in front of me. I didn't care I ate meat. But I was like, hey, you know what? If you want to be the keeper of the home, you can do that. Keep the kids, whatever. So she said, hey, we just want Logan to eat. We want him to be a vegetarian. So I was like, whatever, cool. My mom, whether she was joking or not, she said, well, if he comes to my house, I'm going to feed him whatever I have. And Heather was like, And I was like, Mama, no, we can't do that. Like, if Heather only wants him to eat vegetarian meals, he can only eat vegetarian meals. And we made it clear that if you don't agree with that, then we can't bring Logan here. And some people may look and they may say, that's harsh, that's your mother. But she has to realize something. When I got married, I left her to join together with my wife. If everybody in the world turns their back on me, I need to have my wife. That's important. But it takes me to validate her. In the same way where I've had some situations with her mom, where her mom used to work for us, and her mom tried to change some things in our business, and her mom, like, she'd get on the phone with her mom, and she'd just start crying. And I would grab the phone from Heather and be like, hey, who you talking to? And her mom is like, her mom's the sweetest woman in the world, and I don't have a problem with yelling at old people. Who disrespect my wife, not just anybody, but those who would disrespect my wife. And in that moment, it was disrespectful. But I needed her to know this is not something that we will ever tolerate, ever. And I wanted to make it clear. And I only had to do that maybe once or twice. And after that, and now the entire family respects it. They're like, Heather done said something. Don't say nothing because you're going to get Cornelius involved. I tell them all the time, listen, you can talk about me. You can call me whatever you want to call me. It's okay if you mess with this grizzly. If you mess with Mama Bear, though, now you got Mama Bear to worry about and you got Papa Bear. And you don't want to mess with Mama Bear. I'll get mad if you mess with me, but you do not want to wake up the beast if you mess with my wife. And everybody around me, they understand that. They also know this. You do not have an audience with me if you disrespect my wife. I don't care who you are. You can be the president of the United States. Well, we know. But anyway, you can be who, I don't care who you are. If you disrespect my wife, you don't have an audience with me. We can't sit down. We can't talk. No, we're not friends. We'll never be friends because you can't respect my wife. This is me. We're one. So that has to be important, that boundary. I know it's a long answer to a short question.
Hearing that you guys came from different backgrounds and was raised different, when you spoke about how you raised your children, what solution did you come up with on just coming to the table?
Well, the solution is when I'm with the kids, I like to give them a choice. This is just me and my parenting, but I believe that God gives us a choice. He doesn't just come down and beat us. Although baby, no. You don't. And it's so cute. The kids grab the spoon and they give him Pop Pops. They're like, I'm going to give you Pop Pops, Daddy. It's so cute. But, amen. But I like to give them a choice. So I think that in our marriage, we're great because we balance each other out. So I give them choice. I say, well, Logan will be really upset. And he'll say, well, I don't want to go get dressed. And I'm like, okay, you have an option. Do you want to get dressed or do you want to go clean up your toys? What? I don't want to clean up my toy. Great. Then it sounds like you're going to go get dressed because you made the decision. So I like to try to empower them to make their decisions and to be led by doing the right thing. So I like to give options of what decisions to make. There's times where our kids absolutely cut up. And there's times where I've had to snatch up Taylor. And I look at her and then I lay hands a lot. All day long, and I'll lay hands. I'd be like, I bind that spirit of rebellion right now in the name of Jesus. So I lay hands on the kids probably a lot, and when I do that, they're just like, Mommy, stop. But there's been times, maybe one or two times, where I've had to threaten Daddy, which is probably not the best. Well, more so by the nanny. I've only done that once or twice. I don't want them to be scared of Daddy, so I try not to do that. But for the most part, I feel like they listen and they respect me also because Cornelius and I let them know that Mommy and Daddy are a team. You can't play us against each other. We work together in our home. So although I give them options and choices and it works and my kids listen and respect me, the spoon works too. So.
And I was going to say, I also reinforce that to my wife. And I reinforce that to the kids as well, like I would do to other family members. So I've had to look at my son. I look at him and say, hey, you don't talk to your mother that way. Because if you mess with her, you messing with me. And I get right in his face as a man. Look me in my eyes, look at me, boy. And he'll look at me. He's like, okay. But I want him to know, like the fire of God and wrath will come down if you mess with my wife. Like, you don't do that. So it really balances each other out. Because, they know that my wife is cuddly. And they still cuddle with me, but it's like an apprehensive cuddle. It's like, are you okay? You're good? We're good to cuddle? Okay, we're good. So it's just an apprehensive cuddle. Yeah, I guess it is a man thing. I don't know, whatever. But our kids are different. Any other questions? Oh.
All right. So I'll be a little bit more transparent. I had a lot of expectations when we got married. We went through marriage counseling where we were counseled on different one another's, like greet one another, take on each other's burdens. And so my expectation was that we would go through these every month, and everything that we didn't do that month, we would talk about ways that we can do it better that month. And we've been married almost 4 years, and I think we've done it twice. So that went out the window. And then a lot of the expectations were, because my husband is a visionary, and so whatever he would profess out of his mouth, I would expect for it to come to fruition. And I didn't see that happening, which stirred up a lot of frustration. And so I said, okay, I'm going to go to the other side of the spectrum, not going to have these expectations at all. But not having those expectations, now my husband as a leader, he doesn't probably feel needed. So I guess my question is, how do I make sure that I stay in the middle where I'm able to expect for him to do the things that he says he's going to do, but also give him enough grace where if they don't come to fruition, it's not expressed all over my face?
Of course. No, I totally understand. I've learned that, and this is what I love about God, he honors submission. So if you're believing and you're doing the right thing and you're standing and you're encouraging your husband, like God still honors that. So now as far as your question, I believe that if you're married to a visionary, and a visionary is a person that's got a lot of great ideas. And I once heard this about visionaries. They'll be either very, very poor, very, very rich, because one of their ideas is going to empty out your whole bank account, or it could absolutely fill it up. I've learned to visionary wives to encourage them to enjoy the ride. And it might sound crazy, but it's like if you try to, and I know your personality because I know you, but if you try to understand where he's going every single time, it doesn't work out and you end up frustrated. No, enjoy the ride. Like sometimes we have to let go of the reins of the control that we have as women and everything being absolutely perfect and saying, you know what, you're teaching me a lesson to flow with the Holy Spirit. And that's what I love about the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit, it has parts of visionaries too. You know what I mean? So the thing is, if God made him that way, then he placed you there to be a helpmeet. So now you can help him and encourage him. And there's been times with my husband where I wanted him to I called them checkups. You know how you go to the doctor, you get an annual checkup? I wanted to do monthly checkups where we just talked about our marriage and the state of it. But when I said that to him, he was like, whoa, like that's a lot. Because he felt like you're just going to tell me everything I'm doing wrong. So now I've learned that when we go on our date days, just talk about life. And I've learned not to sweat the small stuff. So I encourage you just to enjoy the ride. And I think that's the best thing to do, and just ask the Holy Spirit, like, God, how can I best help him and not get frustrated? There's been times on both sides that I know we've made business mistakes. And the worst thing in the world, and you know that feeling where somebody looks at you and like, it didn't work out. How does that feel? You don't want to feel that in your marriage because you're not going to have that trust. So with my husband, I still encourage him, babe, we learned something from that experience. And I'm so proud of you for stepping out on faith. And, I trust that God's going to provide. We learned something from that. And I'm thankful for what we learned. We can take that experience with us to the next place. So just keep building and just cheering him on.
I guess my question is, what expectations that are commonly accepted? Well, first of all, have there been any expectation that either one of you have set that you later realized were, I guess, not biblical at all? That could be potentially like commonly accepted by majority right now.
I know one that's very common. One of my friends, her husband's expectation was that they had sex 3 times a day. And 3 times a day, and was serious. Like, he wanted to have sex 3 times a day. And for her, it was hard because she's like, we work. But he's like, no, I just come to your job, meet me in the car. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, he had a very strong sex drive. And so he had expectations, but it was wearing her out. She was frustrated. She was tired. She just felt like this is work. Like, this is not fun. I'm not enjoying this. So they had to communicate and get on the same page and say, okay, because God typically pairs you with somebody that has a different sex drive so you guys can meet each other's needs. But you have to say, okay, are my needs realistic? Like, obviously, we can't have sex 3 times a day because it's in her case, she was just becoming totally worn out. But then she realized that there was some adultery in the relationship. And what happened was it's not that she wasn't having sex, it's just that he had a lust problem. And lust just wants different sex. The more you feed that lust. So for him, he felt like, well, this sex is good, but I want different sex too. So he ended up cheating on her and, sleeping with somebody else and realized that his issue was lust. And so he didn't really need sex 3 times a day. He just had an issue with lust. So they ended up getting counseling, they reconciled, they worked through their marriage, and now they've been married for years, and they're so happy, and they share their story to help other people. We can do one more? One more question?
Since you're dying for me to ask a question. So our issue is we can set expectations in our marriage, but we can't be consistent. So, for example, I would expect him to help me get 3 children ready for school in the morning, and he'll do it for a day, and that's it. And then he'll wonder why I'm frustrated by the time I come home at 5 o'clock because I've got 3 kids ready for school, took them to 3 different places, worked a 9 to 5, picked them back up at the other 3 different places while he's at home watching TV or something. Okay, maybe 2. maybe 2 days. And so the thing is, we'll go back in a circle. Like, we'll set the expectation, I need your help. He'll say, okay, I'll do it a day or 2. But then he'll fall right back into not doing it. So I think we just need to get out of that and help him be more consistent. And even with me, like, I will say I'll do something, but then I won't do it because I'm tired because he didn't help me the other days that he said he was going to help. So I can't fulfill his wishes as well.
The first thing is consistency is key. It's always key. If you're not consistent, then I'll say this: it's difficult to trust a person who isn't consistent. You can't have too many expectations in somebody who's not consistent. But I think to answer your question, because the question is more so how do you stay consistent? The key to consistency is action. Just like the key to overcoming procrastination is action. It's actually doing it. That's what breaks the chain. It's like you have to just keep doing it, even when you don't want to do it. And you realize that once you finally keep doing it past the threshold of you not wanting to do it, then you learn to enjoy it. So, for instance, in trying to get the kids ready in the morning, it could be, hey, I don't feel like doing this, but I'm going to wake up at this time. My alarm's going to go off. I want to get the kids ready. The kids are going to go. I'll make sure the kids are off, make sure the lunches are made. Boom, I do that. And then the next morning, I get up and do the same thing. Then the next morning, I get up and do the same thing. So it becomes a routine. And it becomes something that even before you go to bed at night, you're like, okay, I'm setting my mind to get up to do this. But consistency is key, and you have to keep that consistency. And when you don't have a consistent lifestyle, it's difficult for you to be trusted. And that's the big thing here is not the consistency, it's more so of the trust. It's like, do I want to be trusted in my marriage? Yes, I want to be trusted. I want to be respected. I want to be trusted and respected, so I have to be consistent. And that has to be the case for men. We have to be consistent. It must be a sense of consistency. If not, then it kind of tears apart. I know there have been times in our marriage where it's like, okay, we want to make sure that we're both being consistent. And the only cure for that was for me saying, okay, I got to get up, I got to keep doing this. Like, I don't feel like doing it. And sometimes for me, being transparent, I would voice my frustration while I was doing it. But my thing was, you can't get upset because I did it. I did it. I was very vocal about not wanting to do it. But then I started learning, okay, you're being really petty and very immature. And the good thing is that they're your kids, both of yours. So it's kind of like you get a chance to be a dad.
And you also have to think that kids grow really fast. I mean, everybody, I'm sure, can attest to that. And you're going to blink and look up, and they're going to be moving out. And it's like I'm learning to appreciate those moments of our bedtime schedule and our morning schedule. And the beautiful thing is, like, at night, like, we do prayer times, and we read, and we brush our teeth, and we talk about the importance of it. So you guys can build and create memories. You can pray with your babies. You can do all these awesome things in the morning, and then I love when my husband always takes a kid. I mean, we have 2, so it's like it's always like, all right, which one you taking? Because I ain't had these kids by myself. But I don't have to say that because he jumps right in. But it helps me because he takes off the load. So now I can have more energy. We're happier. We get along a lot better because I don't feel like I'm alone in this. And I think that's the feeling. You sometimes feel alone because it feels like I'm juggling everything. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. So. Just to toot, I guess, your horn is he always likes to alleviate the burden from me. So if he notices that I have a lot going on, then he'll like take Taylor and be like, all right, we're going upstairs. Like, let's just, let's go. And I know he's just giving me a few minutes. And I appreciate that. And it helps me to respect him and believe in him more. And it's almost like he's throwing coil onto the what is that thing called? Yeah, the furnace. It just keeps it going. You know what I mean? He just keeps it hot and keeps it going. Coal. I'm sorry, baby. I'm tired. We've been talking a lot today. But I'm just thankful that he takes that burden with me, and I don't feel alone in that.